Well, guys, how's it going? We are only 10 today. Oh my God, people are just abandoned the class, man. I'm too annoying. I'm trying to tell people. Let's get here. Let's see. Yeah, I think we are a good group. Sweet. So today, I think the best thing for me to do was would be like just like to do some more sculpting. I think in different areas because although I show live some areas like the pores and the eye bags and things like that, I didn't explore too much like lips and ears and neck. So I'm going to be doing some work in those areas today, and also trying to tackle a little bit my likeness as I comment on it. And we're going to be opening the shaders for the teeth, so you guys can see what I have for the teeth in there. And I'm running some renders right now. So so this is a couple of renders I'm doing with different lighting setups. So you can see like how sensitive it is, right? Like the forms are so hard to read sometimes, it's like depending on the reference you have. So that's why I normally have like a couple of lighting setups. For example, like I have a few HDRI maps, kind of like I create like a different one so I can actually flip between a couple of them. And then I have those lighting setups with like actual area lights and things like that. So this one is a similar one to what I had for the Stan Winston model, which is basically like this flashlight, right? So you can see like there's a little reflection right in the eye, right there in the front. Basically what I do, I create like a circular area light. So instead of like a square one, it's like a circle. And then that basically like I put offset from the camera is slightly to either to the left or to the right and higher, right? It's almost like if the photographer is actually holding it, or maybe the assistant was holding a little bit far, not too far, but a little bit offset from his position. And then that way you can get this flashlight effect, which is kind of like washes out everything in the front, but you get the forms in the back and things like that. So check this out, comparing this one to the renders I'm running with that lighting setup to simulate those super high resolution portraits, right? It's almost like a different person. Like the eye distance almost like changes, the chin changes completely shape, and it's exactly the same model. Like the teeth actually, it seems like he expands, right? Because now you're seeing all of them, including those ones in the back in there. You can see a little bit. While here you're not seeing, you can see more reflections of the teeth as well. So it's very important, it's like to be able to evaluate the forms, to actually have multiple lighting setups, and then try to, render from time to time a couple of them. So I did those ones. I started last night. So this one here is the old one for comparison. And then this one compares to this one here. So this is what changed. The hair is still pretty rough, right? Like I didn't do any more grooming or anything like that. But this is just like the shape of like the tip of the nose that I pulled up a little bit. I kind of fixed a little bit of this area here around the lips and then the chin. So you can see like it switches, right? Between those two. Kind of like it's slowly improving certain areas, Now it's time to actually go and refine things, so I can pay attention and go and look at his eye and then tweak whatever is needed. And it's like I said since the beginning, my process is like this. I keep working on my primary forms and secondary forms all the way to the end. So, it doesn't matter if the pores are all in place. I keep working on them, right? So as long as it's like you're careful with the way you pull the forms around, you should be safe, it's like to do it. So this is the profile. I fix a bunch of things in relation to my portrait in there, like chin and things like that. And then this one here for comparison, like since you're talking about the detail, right? Like those are the new cheeks, right? Like with very little detail when it comes to pores. And this is the old one. Look how crunchy it was before, right? So all that stuff was eliminated yesterday in class. And then I'm going to be doing some of that around here as well on the sides, kind of like this area here. I want it more shiny like that and a little bit smoother. I think it's starting to look a little bit nicer. Like it matches his old man skin. So I'm going to be, poking around with some of those things today in class. And then, like I said, start with some likeness, fixing some things and commenting on it. And also I have some recommendations here for you guys. It's very important to, you know, to have some books about photography handy. Those are kind of old. I didn't buy many books lately, like when it comes to photography, but those ones I used for many years. This one is called The Complete Guide to Light. And then it basically, it says like Mark Cleghorn, so like Cleghorn. And the cool thing about this book is that he shows some examples of his photographs, and then he puts a little picture underneath showing the position for the lighting. So like the type of lighting like that, he's using umbrella lights and things like that. So the position of the subject, and then the positioning of the lighting, and then you know, the intensity and things like that. For example, this one here is using just one single window light, so like natural light for that, and then a reflector. So it's cool to look, you know, it's like what kind of setup they use, so you can actually simulate that in 3D. And the other cool book is this one here. That this is from Michael Freeman, and it's called The Photographer's Eye. And the cool thing about this one here is about composition. So it's like he teaches you how to look at things, basically. You know, it's like how to frame things, frames within frame, diagonals, all the good stuff, you know. Patterns, yeah, all kinds of things, you know, that. So this one is a good one for composition. If you later on, you're going to do like a nice portrait with to add some more interest to it, you know. So it's you see, like sometimes when I render those things, I try to do, you know, make angles a little bit more interesting like that. If I'm rendering, for example, like the front, this one I'm rendering it very boring, so it's completely straight. But if you look at some of my other renders on Instagram, they are normally like slightly tilted to the side, so it looks like almost like it's an amateur photographer, you know, it's like photographing with the camera slightly tilted. So I do that as well. So you know, through tricks you can do to sell the idea that's an actual picture of someone, right? It's very important. So I'm gonna leave this one rendering. When it's finished, we come back here so I can talk about my lighting, and then about the teeth as well. But for now, let's go back to ZBrush, and let's explore some of these forms here. I'm gonna be doing some, I'm gonna use this reference here, which is this guy. And I'm gonna be trying to get some of the eyelids, because his eyelids, although the shape looks correct, it seems like I have to pull them out quite a bit. Not quite a bit, because I already did a pass, but I'm gonna bring them out a little bit more. Just go back here. And then I'm gonna have to pay attention to that fold in there. Most of you guys are not like doing like super old people, but if you are, that's the kind of trouble you're gonna get into. So I'm gonna be using the selection here in symmetry. So I'm gonna, basically like what I do is just press W, E, or R, right, to enter this mode. And then with your little selection, with the little gizmo in there, you just press Control, click in an area like that, and then drag. And then you can get the entire loop, if your mesh has a good loop, right? And then basically that's selected. Control, click outside to invert the mask again. And then now we can actually play with this. So let's do some pulling of that area. And since my geometry is actually symmetrical, so let's do a transform, delete posable symmetry, and just gonna activate again. It kind of like the posable symmetry is very useful, right? Because even when you have your model posed, you still can sculpt symmetrically. But from time to time, like over time, it starts like losing symmetry. So you have to keep like clicking from time to time, you know, so just like click, use posable symmetry. And then I'm just gonna pull this area out slightly. It seems like his eyelids go out a bit. It's mostly like this area here. So let's get 50 for intensity, which is the default. Let's bring this out slightly. Try not to create a gap too big in there. And add more asymmetry as well, because it seems like this side of his face, this one is always a little bit more droopy. So let me just get some more pictures here of the man. maybe like some more neutral than that. But this one here, you can actually see how droopy this one is, right? But obviously he's squinting a little bit stronger here and he's looking up, right? So his head is tilted down. So I have to compensate for that. But I think there's a little bit more neutral version here. Let's try with this one. Something like that. His face looks longer in here. It's crazy, you know. It's like you're gonna see like all kinds of different shapes in the same person's face because of the type of lenses being used. Maybe like in a certain period of his life, the person was a little bit skinnier, right? Like lost weight, especially like older people. You never know what's going on. You know, sometimes they get sick, and you know, it's like are dealing with something, right? I'm 47 now. I'm kind of almost there too. Always dealing with something. So just pull this one down slightly. And then I'm gonna keep that one a little bit more squarish. So the left one's gonna be a little bit more squarish. So I'm gonna pull this up and add this little square shape to it. It looks like a vampire with those black eye bags. Right, let's just remove that. Let's review. This bag here seems like it could be a little bit higher. I might be wrong. A little tweak here and there. And then the nose is always a tricky one, right? As everything with likeness, I mean, like at first sight, things look like one thing, but then as you evolve with your model, things start changing, right? Like, and all of a sudden, it's not exactly what you first saw. I noticed that he has this very peculiar little bags in here on the sides, around here. So I'm just gonna build them up a little bit. So I'm gonna use the clay build up. And you see I'm working on the lowest level of my subdivision here, right? That means I'm actually changing some primary and secondary forms right here, which I keep doing like over and over again. You know, I go back and forth between higher resolution and then lower. That's why I have no problem about like starting adding some detail. As long as the model is not gonna change a whole lot, right? Like at least you have some of the proportions similar to what's gonna be the end result. Then you can actually play with this, you know. But obviously, if it's something that's gonna change a lot, I would not trust that. Let's actually build this side here asymmetrically. Add more volume here. And then dig in right here, because I want to make sure that we read that little baggy. And I'm going to bring this up slightly too. Seems like there's a little bit of more of a gap. I'm going to bring this one so I can reveal the lid slightly. And for the lids, I'm not sure if those eyeballs are the same I'm using in the scene. I believe they are not for some reason. Just let me double check. Well, I'll bring it later because it's rendering right now. But I have to make sure that the top ones are actually matching the eyeballs pretty good. I don't want to, you know, screw up because I was playing with those move brushes. You know, I just want to make sure that those are kind of locked in there. Don't need lighting leaking or anything like that. But I would like to actually pull those eyelids, at least the internal part, forward a little bit. So let's see if my symmetry is on for this resolution. I'm just gonna pull those guys slightly out. Because I need the light to actually hit them slightly stronger. So I can actually, if I look at the picture, it seems like the lighting gets them. So that means they're probably a little bit more forward. And yeah, this corner goes down a little bit too. So let's go back to my clay build up and then just maybe like one subdivision level higher. And let me just dig in a little bit this area here. So if I want to change like bigger forms, I can use the standard brush, the one I normally use, right? But again, like I can just like put a very low intensity, like 3, and then grow it pretty big like that. And then that way, if I test it right here, you know, you can get like those very broad forms. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it right here. A broad form, just like dig deeper right here. Really define that little baggy. Okay, and this one here too. At this point of the game, everything is very subtle, right? Like it's almost like you have to be careful. So you get to a stage that, okay, you see the likeness improving, and then at some point, if you go a little bit too heavy-handed, you lose it, right? It can be like in a guy like this, I would say like the mouth area is very important. And that's the one that I have to nail, you know. It's like the teeth is not quite there yet. I'm gonna have to change the shape of the teeth. But yeah, it's like, it's a tricky one. I'm gonna make the nasal labia a little bit deeper as well. With a broad shape brush like that. Just dig a little deeper right there. I want it to read like that fold is actually folding in there instead of like just superficial, you know. I'm gonna go all the way around here and then try to go a little bit deeper with everything. And you see like my intensity is 3 right now, so it's very subtle. So everything I'm actually sculpting here is just adding the depth, but without going too crazy. And then I can actually pinch that inside a little bit more. So let's tweak the shape here. Oops. Okay, and build up that. So actually I get a nice little tight connection in there. Yeah, I need to go maybe do a little pinching in there. Let's see, nice lower resolution. I don't like pinching too much, but sometimes you need it. So let's try to use a very low intensity, like 6. That might be a little too much. Yeah, let's try 3. It has to be subtle. Okay, that's gonna work. This lines here, I like to make just like the eyelids, to make the nasal labia very, very perfect, right? Not perfect in a way that the wrinkles are formed, because like I said before, those wrinkles are not like a straight line. You have those wrinkles kind of like coming and going. But I mean, like this main fold, I like it to read perfect without any like wobble like that, right? Otherwise, it doesn't sell the idea that's actually you know, it's like it's a broad form that actually being deformed in there. So it's nice if you have like, you know, around this area here of the nose a little bit deeper, and then kind of like it has a little bit of an offset from this area of the nose, right? But then from here on, you have like a continuous line. It's nice if it's like nice and clean. So let's do some more build up around here. And also he has some kind of the double folds everywhere. It's not like like I said before with the nose, you know, it's like if you're looking at someone, at first it strikes you like the form it's a quite simple form. So to block things out, right? Like it's easy because you're just like, okay, I'm gonna just add that form in there, it's all done. But then as you start refining your model, then you're gonna start seeing more things, right? It's almost like a fractal, and it starts developing. And then all of a sudden, like a form that you believe that was a single form, all of a sudden, like it's made out of like 3 forms, right? It's always a good exercise to blur your eyes and then start looking at things with blurred eyes, right? Drinks doesn't count. You have to be sober to do this. Not really. A lot of people do it while under the influence. Not me. I'm pretty square. But yeah, let's get this a little bit more squarish right there on the side. From time to time, I mean, like you can even use the H polish brush, but just like with very low intensity, just to, you know, to define some planes again. So let's do like with the intensity of like 7 or something like that. Just gonna brush this area just because I want a little bit flatter on the side. It's easier to just like get it flat. This one slightly too, not too much, but slightly flat. This is a polish brush I use a lot when I'm, you know, it's like sculpting like primary forms and things like that. If I start with like with a cube or a sphere, it's a great way to just like block things. You know, but you know, in this case, in the case of this model, we started with a mesh already, right? So it's not like I have to reinvent the wheel. I just have to pull things around, basically. And I was actually thinking about starting the class next week with like a sphere or a cube, you know. It's like, so since you guys are gonna have access to all those classes, maybe you can get a kick out of it. But I don't know if it's a good deal for the people in the next class, you know, because we want to make sure that we are hitting some targets, and that can delay things if I'm gonna have to sculpt everything from scratch. It's already pretty tight. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this model in the next couple of days. And we start with the base mesh. So I don't know. It's almost like at this point, it's like proving a point to people, you know. It's like, oh, I can sculpt from my sphere, you know, and it's kind of pointless. I did this so many times that, you know, had so many videos on YouTube showing like, not YouTube, like Instagram showing like, oh yeah, from a sphere. Oh, this one's from a cube, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of pointless. If you have experience with modeling like humans and creatures and stuff, it doesn't matter what you start with, you know. At the studio, for example, we have base meshes for a lot of animals and humans, so you rarely start from scratch. King Kong, I had to start from scratch because we didn't have anything like it. But you know. When it comes like to this type of, you know, humans, it's just a matter of like, okay, how much work you want to spend, right? How much time you want to spend? You want to do everything from scratch, or you're going to start with something, you know, it's like something that has a little base. And in this case here for me, like it's the fastest way. I would say like not the best way, because I mentioned that before. I try to avoid contamination. If you have already a base mesh, and then your brain starts getting a little lazy, you know, instead of like really going to town and really forcing a form to look in a certain way. Your eyes in your brain kind of trick you and say like, oh no, that looks good already, you know, don't need to touch this part. And when you don't see that, but you're actually leaving stuff that came from a previous model in there instead of like going to town and just like tweaking things, you know. So that's why I'd rather start with the Cuban sphere. But yeah, but for the class here, for speed, I don't mind to just like go and tweak the whole thing. The trick is to actually go and tweak everything, right? Like, and not like get lazy with it, and just like I said, like just avoid sculpting stuff just because it's already there somehow. Like, no, you have to actually go and sculpt everything. Make sure you're changing those so you don't have any contamination. You know, otherwise all the models going to start looking kind of the same, right? You see this in games a lot. Like you see some characters for games, and then you can tell that they're reusing some base meshes sometimes because they kind of look a little bit too much like each other. Unless they are doing with scans, and then with the scans it's a different story, right? Because they're capturing totally different people. But when it's in the hands of an artist just to create variations and stuff, sometimes you get some very cool ones, but sometimes it's just like you can see that's a little lazy. That's not, you know, you could go a little bit further with the detail. Not detail, but changing everything, primary and everything. Just building some of those forms here. And again, like the cheeks is an interesting one, right? Like, because at first sight, let me just switch here. And they're gonna cut this pretty strongly here. But at first sight, it looks like a very simple form, right? But then there is this whole entire thing here, you know, it's like there's a couple of forms happening underneath. So it's very subtle. We're gonna see like there's a tiny little line in there that I added, you know? So this one actually goes and it starts like expanding and going all the way towards the nose like that. And there's a lot going on. I mean, like there's another line that goes here and cuts around there, right? And then you're gonna have like your zygomatic muscles, right? Like pulling, of course, like he has so much form here, you're not gonna see anything. But I mean, like there is stuff going on underneath right there, right? You're gonna see like stuff pulling that direction. So, and then for example, like if you have like a face that's completely compressed like that, depending on the type of the face, of course, but sometimes you get like a kind of like an invisible line that goes like this, kind of like this and like this. And it actually defines a mask. So this part here is a little bit more inflated because there's a squint and everything pulling towards that. So I have a tiny little bit of that. So if I go a little bit in a glancing angle like that, you can see that line that's in there. So all those things I added, you know, after I have all the detail already. It's not like I'm, you know, it's like struggling with the, you know, at the very beginning to lock everything and get the forms perfect first. Like, no, as I go, I start observing the references of like, okay, there's a very subtle forming there. So if it's a broad form, I should not sculpt right here at this level, right? You just go back in resolution. And then if it's a very broad form, you can do it at the lowest. Or if it's something a little bit in between, like the second level like that, I sculpt a lot at the second level. I would say like most of the stuff is done at this level here when it comes to primary and secondary forms. And yeah. Oh, that's too strong now. Let's get this back to 3 or 4. Let's start 4. And another form that's interesting here is this one. You're gonna notice in some people much more than other people. But for example, like coming here from the eyebrow, right? Like there's this line here, and it continues and then kind of breaks around here, right? And then from here you keep going, and then you're gonna get like somehow like a triangle around here, right? Like because you have your temporalis line going that way, and then you have this little triangle. So normally the triangle happens around here, and then this form here, it's a different one, right? So we have like this kind of like this form that goes around like that, right there, right? And then you have those forms on the side. So this is the kind of stuff as well that's very subtle, you know. It's like first you add those lines, so you know they are there, and then you start filling things up. So right now I kind of like, I think I eliminated too much, so I'm gonna just add very little of it. It's all about subtlety when you get to this point here, you know. So any little thing that you add can help with the structure later. So I'm going to be doing in both sides here just a little bit more of that line. I'm going to barely see it, but it's actually being added in there. And then for the temporalis line, I might exaggerate that a little bit as well. He has veins and other things, so it's going to be a little tricky in there. But for example, from here, I can actually force it. And break it back in here, right? Because if you're talking about like the structure of the skull, you're going to have a line that goes like this. Then it's going to break out right here, right? And then that's going to become your bone structure right there, the zygomatic. This one is a bit more like that. And then from here, obviously, like the zygomatic muscle is going to be hanging going that direction, right? So all this stuff here, when you're sculpting, you're paying attention to the, you know, it's like to the form of the skull and everything. After you do this stuff like many, many times, I mean, like you don't, it's almost like you don't pay too much attention to what you're doing. You know, it's like you just add those lines and then you get done with it. But it's kind of like a different thing when you're trying to teach, you know. It's like, and since this is not like an anatomy class, and I'm assuming like you guys have experience with this stuff, you know, it's like that's why I don't go too far into this stuff. But yeah, it's like all those things are kind of being thought out when I'm sculpting. You know, it's like just thinking like, okay, there is a line that's missing here. For example, this line here is kind of like a recent one. You can see right here, that's the, let's just make stronger. There's a break right here in this area. You can see like from the profile right there. And then here got a little bumpy, so let's just smooth it out a little bit. So there's a breakup right here. So if I select it, you're gonna see it. So there's a line. So it goes a little bit more square and then breaks and changes angle. And this area here is a very tricky one to nail, right? Like the forehead to me is one of the most challenging ones. And together, obviously, with the zygomatic here, you know, it's very common to actually turn around and all of a sudden like it doesn't work anymore. And also the chin, right? The relationship between the chin and the sides of the face in there. So those areas are very critical because the easiest thing is to nail like a face from the front, right? It's a little bit harder to nail it from the side, but then to nail like from the 3/4 is very important, right? Because it's kind of like an in-between that you're trying to nail. And it can get very, very tricky. So at all times, keep checking your references, you know, so I can don't get like too far with just one angle. So if you're going like, you know, sculpting a lot, just one side, before you go too far, just, you know, spin your model a little bit. And use all tricks in the book as well, you know, it's like to keep your brain fresh. You know, it's like that trick about like flipping things upside down when you're super tired at the end of the day, you know, so you can actually have a fresh angle so you can actually see things differently, right? So if your brain is fried, you cannot see the forms anymore. You look at the reference and you don't see, oh, it looks perfect. It's just your brain lying to you and saying like, go to sleep, you know. So instead of that, you just say, fuck your brain, and you just like flip your model. And then you keep going, like it's all of a sudden it's a brand new model, you know. And then you can keep going for you know, another hour or two. It all depends of your drive. Tomorrow is 4th of July, and a lot of people are going to be resting, but I'm going to be working hard on this model because I want to make sure that I'm going to have pretty close to done when it comes next week, right? Because I'm starting another model. So yeah. Gonna make sure that I have something semi-done. Yeah, certain things are not quite there. You can see a little bit of problem with zygomatic right there on the side. I'm gonna try to eliminate this little bump here a little bit. Smooth it out. And then another thing that's a secondary form here, right? It's basically this one here. So there's a big fold being formed in here. So there's a line being cut right there. So when I look from the profile, I want to make sure that I have 2 forms in there instead of just one. So instead of like a simple form, I want to make sure that I have something more like this, right? So I'm going to dig it a little bit deeper in here. And then when I turn it around, let's see, I'm going to fill up this area a little bit more. Yeah, it's more like a double form instead of just one. That's the thing, you know, it's like it's always a matter of like looking at the references and trying to see beyond what you're actually seeing, right? Like it's a combination of seeing and trying to imagine the mechanics of the movement of what's going on with the skin. And for example, like it's a little abstract, right? But you can try to imagine like, you know, it's like there's a bigger form moving, and there's another form actually hitting it, right? Like from another side. And then basically like that's creating a collision in there, and that collision is creating an inflation, right? And then that inflation is bulging those forms. So you have to try to imagine that. So when you build those things, again, here, for example, this one here looks a little wonky. I'm gonna be just smoothing it out a little bit right there. I want like a nice little profile or 3/4. It's a very tricky area. It's like the one that you have to keep like turning very slowly sometimes, you know, it's like you do a tiny little bit of work and you very slowly you turn it around and you know, do a little bit more work again, just because like it's so tender, so easy to actually go off model. And the same with the chin, you know, chin is very tricky, and forehead to get the volume correct. Some people are gonna have this area here in the front very narrow, right? Like you're gonna see like more narrow like that, narrower. And then some people are gonna have a little bit more broad. Some people are gonna have like a taller forehead like that, right? Some people are gonna have like a very sloped forehead. Not that, like that, right? Although it's pretty cool. This is another thing that's pretty cool to do, you know, it's like if you have a realistic model and it's looking pretty cool, just get in, you know, it's like start playing with the forms and just like destroying everything. It's pretty cool. I like that part. Playing with the proportions. You can come up with some cool characters. Because I mean, like all this stuff is already there, right? Like all the detail is already there. So you can actually just like destroy it. It's pretty cool. Oh, and another thing that's cool about that is, for example, like if you're having trouble with, let's say like with the eyes, right? Let's say the eyes are too close together. And sometimes I do this. And I believe this character here might be a little bit like that. It might be a little bit too close together. So sometimes just by exercising something goofy like that, just pulling very far away like that, it's almost like your brain starts seeing like, okay, I can see that it could go further out a little bit, right? Just by doing things like that. Or you go inside, I was like, uh-oh, now you've kind of, you know, trick your brain to actually see things differently. I think that at the end, I'm gonna be pulling the eyes slightly out like that, maybe a tiny bit like that. I think it's gonna look a little bit more natural, the distance. But yeah, not for now. Let's keep the way it is. And I'm gonna keep working on, let's see what I can do here. From this angle, now I have the breakup in there. You see like the two forms that I mentioned. On the side here, same thing. So it's like so two forms. This area here, if I turn it around, I think I can actually go deeper around there. Some of my primaries starting to make more sense. His chin is that whole thing about, you know, it's like chins being so deceiving, like I said before. Sometimes you think it's just a single form, right? And then you start breaking it down and it ends up like being like normally 3 forms, right? So for example, like those wrinkles coming from those folds from around the nasolabial, sometimes, not sometimes, but most of the time, you're gonna notice that they're gonna do this kind of thing. So that means like that your chin is gonna be split in 3 like that, right? Obviously exaggerating here, but it's good to actually just add a little bit of that and break up that volume. So I'm gonna just dig in very softly. And you can even build up a little bit the middle area if that's the case. But in his case here, I think it's okay in there. And just gonna cut a little bit the bottom of it here. It was a little bit too round. In that phase of just like doing small tweaks. And then let's break the symmetry of this neck as well. Let's get the reference here. It's fairly symmetrical, but I can still bring it to the side. So those forms are a little bit tricky here. I spent some time trying to imagine what's going on here, but he has this little web coming from the side around here. And then it kind of like becomes like a thin skin. Goes further. And then it's kind of like a complex kind of networking here, because you have this one pulling from this direction, but then there is one coming all the way from the back right here. And this one actually goes and connects around here, but much lower. So for example, it gets lower here, so deeper. And then starts getting a little bit more volumetric until you become this form right there. So it's almost like it becomes this kind of like light bulb kind of shape, you know? It's like at the bottom here. which is also tricky because every time I see different references, he's turning his head in a different way. And then some of those forms just go away. And I was like, man, I thought it was kind of like always there, you know, and it's actually not. So it's a chase, you know. It's like a sculpting likeness is not easy. It was never easy, and we can always pray for the best, you know. It's like expect, you know, try your best and expect that things gonna work. But sometimes it's just like very hard to get the forms to look correct. So I'm gonna just change this, bring it to the side a little bit like that. Then break symmetry as well here. Some extra lines going here towards his clavicle and sternum. So his sternum, it's not like we are seeing like the sternocleidomastoids in there, because I mean, like there's a lot of not fat, but I mean the saggy skin, right? So it's almost like it's all covered in here. But originally it would be coming from here, from the sternum, right, all the way, and connecting to this process here in the back of the head. So from here, we just go down there, kind of like start thick, right? Then gets thinner. Then this would be all filled up. But that is if you're sculpting a Hulk, right? Someone really strong. Not this case here. In this case here is very, very soft. It's covered with all the other stuff. That's why I like the surface anatomy. And I was like, it's just like, it's so cool to cover up all the forms. You know, it's like instead of like having this ripped anatomy, I like exploring like all the richness of all those folds, you know, all those things that make like multiple levels of form instead of just like a straightforward, you know, muscle that you sculpt in there and that's done. It's just like multiple layers of form and things interacting with each other. It's more appealing to me. I like the naturalistic stuff more than the Hulk fight stuff, you know. But I don't get me wrong, I like sculpting from time to time some monsters, especially at work. My personal work is more about naturalistic stuff, right? Making people to look digital people to look alive. That's my goal. So now that I did some work in there, let's do some work in the ears as well, because the ears are one part that we take for granted, and they are very important too. Let's see if I get like one with a better resolution, slightly profile. Maybe this one. It's not quite a profile, right? I can see some stuff in there. You can see like those little wrinkles coming this direction as well. So let's add some of those. Get I'm gonna say like a HD. I'm gonna just go a little higher, but without going HD. And maybe just like hide something here. So I can actually focus in there. And let's go and do some sculpting here in the ears. So let's make it, actually I have to hide everything because I want to make sure I have everything symmetrical, because I want to save some time with the ear sculpting. And they can be in different positions and everything, but I want to make sure that I'm using this posable symmetry. At least I get some of the form in there. So I'm using the clay build up with the little alpha, right? This the round one. So I want to build some of those forms around here. And for the ears, remember like I was talking about the nasolabial that I wanted like to read very, very perfect, right? In the case of the ears, it's good if you have a little bit more of a bumpiness, right? So it doesn't need to be like completely perfect around here. Especially like an older guy can actually add some of those bumps. And sometimes there is a tiny little pieces of cartilage that actually stick. And then you see those little bumps, you know, sometimes it's very strong like this. Like you have a little bump like that, right? Or breaking the silhouette, something like that. But not his case here so far. I didn't see it. But I noticed that this area here, sometimes it gets a little bit more squarish. So I'm gonna add like some, let's see. the edge polish. I'm just gonna, you see like how this one looks so round here? Just gonna make this little corner here a little bit more square. You can go very square, and then if you need to remove some of that square, let's just smooth it out, right? But at least like to define some of those little planes. It's good to actually exercise that from time to time. It's a mess in here. I didn't touch too much of the ear so far. So this should be like closer to the surface. I can actually dig this deeper. And then bring it back a little bit. But like we are going to be seeing inside of the ears, right? But it's good. You can actually have a little bit more of a correct anatomy in there. Smooth it out. And then the same way I added a little angle in there, we can start adding some angles in different areas here. For example, see there's a little imperfection in there. I'm going to correct that. There's a penetration going on. So for example, like for this edge here, you can actually come with your regular standard brush with the low intensity, let's say like maybe less than that, 6. And I'm just going to draw right here at the edge. Just going to define that little line. So instead of like using the edge polish, I'm just actually using the brush with a very sharp point, right? And just building it up. And then from this point on, I can actually carve a little bit deeper in there. But really establish that little line. So this one is another form that's interesting, you know, it's like you're gonna notice this in some people. So instead of like, for example, if you're sculpting a ear, again, the first thing you notice like is the main shape of the ear, right? So you're gonna have this little Y shape in here, and then you're gonna have a form that goes like that, right? So, but then when you start looking closely, sometimes you're gonna start seeing some very interesting forms, like this one here, for example. So I have like this little form here going up, just a little bit lower than that, going up around here. But then there's a breakup. It's almost like it continues a little bit further in some people. And then it becomes almost like this other line at the top in there. So you have this tiny little breakup that happens around here. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit more. And sometimes people get this area here very fat as well. So in his case, it has a very fat ear around there. So we're going to just build that in, smooth it out a little bit. My smooth is very, very subtle. Then just going to build a little bit and blend it again. So just to have that tiny little breakup in there. And then again, for those forms, you can actually exercise the same way. You can define them very strongly and sharp first. And then you smooth it out just to get a little bit more of that shape of the cartilage in there, you know. And then here for this area, I'm gonna dig it deeper around here, just to open a little gap in between. You know, I need a little bit more of depth in here. So I'm gonna dig this. Yeah, I think it's gonna look better. And then just to smooth it out. Keep going here. And then this area here, I'm gonna have to lift a little bit. So I'm gonna bring this up. And this area is gonna come up as well. This is gonna become a little beefier. So I'm gonna bring it in. And they're so different, right? Like it goes like from person to person. You're gonna see like all types of ears. But the certain things are kind of like, you know, kind of common. So let's keep going with this line here. I'm gonna bring it a little bit more towards here. And then when it comes to this bump in here, I'm gonna really break up right in the middle in there, just to exaggerate it and so I can see where the break is. And then from here, I'm gonna keep going with this break towards this area. I dig a little bit more here, and then smooth it out. Very smoothly here, mostly like here. This is the area where I want to see this break. Just adding a little bit more complexity, you know. Same thing here, for example, I can see there's a form that's around here. So that's like basically like it's two little pillows, right? So this one is going to be one. We're going to build up a little bit here, fatter, a little bit fatter in here as well, towards the back. And then for the silhouette of the ear, it's good to have some angles as well, right? So instead of like having something that's totally boring and rounded, you pick like some areas like this, for example, and you kind of squarify a little bit. You know, it's like get little areas like that. So it's not like it doesn't look too boring. So let's get that. Like I said before, a little wobble is not a bad thing, especially in those silhouette areas, right? So those little things, you know, is like really add to the variations, right? And then here, what are we gonna do? We're gonna build this. So there is kind of like a form. Let's see where I am. Oh, here. So there's a form around here, right? That's kind of strong in his case. So I'm gonna be building up it very softly, and then I'm gonna build up around this little area, and then dig in a little bit deeper around here. So I have it kind of like more revealed in there. And then here at the tip, instead of like, you see how this form here is so boring and flat? What we can do, we can actually add a little pillow. I keep calling things pillows because they look like little pillows. Still better than calling things buttholes. So let's get this one here, and then break towards this direction based on what I'm seeing in his reference. And then there's another one around here. Oops, two around here. And then obviously I'm gonna have to look at some other references from the other side and see how that matches up the other side. It's probably gonna be very different, and then try to do some work to match the other side. But this is gonna save me some time and add me some like free detail in there. So now that I have those ones, I'm gonna just, you know, it's like make sure that I make them nice and soft. I'm gonna build up there, smooth it out. And here, smooth it out. And then like this area here I mentioned before, this area here that looks a little boring, right? It's because I don't have a lot of breakup happening here. But if I add just a little bit of a breakup right here and I build up this area, because like I said before, as you sculpt, you have to imagine like they're basically like flexible, you know, rubber bands, right? Like it's like water balloons, and they are actually just like pressing against each other. So if this area here of the jaw is actually pressing against that, you might get a little bit of you know, it's like an influence in there. So this entire form is going to start build up a little bit. Part of it is part of the ear itself, the structure of the ear, but part of it, like especially around here, this connection is part of the influence between those two forms, right? So every time you have like different things colliding, you try to, you know, it's like, I was like playing God, right? Like you're kind of like, okay, this is my little marionette here. And if I do it this way, basically that's what's going to happen, like the action and reaction, right? I have a lot of action and reaction in sculpture. There are some people who are specialized in that, you know, it's like just action and reaction. And you see like those beautiful forms, you know, it's like everything makes sense. Just because people are actually paying attention to those things, you know. You have to be that person, you know, it's like to get your stuff to stand out. You have to be that person that sees things a little bit further every time, you know. If you look at your work, for example, and then you see the work of someone who you really admire, and we always have our idols, right? I mean, like you're gonna look at the work of the person, and you're gonna see certain things that are okay. What's going on here? Because I thought I had it pretty good, but then I compare it to the work of this guy, and it's like, oh man, it's still missing this much, right? And then at the end of the day, it's basically like how much more refined is the eye of that person? You know, it's like the other artist. Well, what is he able to see that you're not seeing, right? And it's all about the exercise in that. You know, it's like it's actually seeing things a little bit further every time. It's very common nowadays. I mean, like we have this. We have fast food, fast information, fast everything, right? And we have fast art as well. So everything is very consume oriented, right? You want to be like famous on Instagram, so you just like crank stuff left and right, and everything is sketches, right? Everything is lunch crunch, and you just get all that stuff in there, and then it's like, oh man, no, you're a hero, right? Like because you're sculpting fast. It was like you know, it's a cool exercise and everything, but I like to basically like enjoy the process, right? The process to me, most of the time, is more important than the final result. Is what I learn in the process. So that's why I value hard work. You know, it's like it's doing everything, not everything, but most of the stuff by hand. You know, it's not like a thing about trying to prove a point every time. It's kind of part of my philosophy. You know, it's like it's just like there is no makes no sense. I mean, like for me to just repeat the same stuff, you know, and then you know, get done with it. I'm actually more interested in like doing the process slowly and painfully, so I can actually learn with the process. And the next time I do it, it's a little bit faster. You know, it gets faster every time. But it's just enjoyable. You know, it's like it's part of my therapy, I guess. At work, I'm doing the work for someone else. You know, it's like I'm doing the work for pay. But you know, when I'm doing my personal work, I'm doing it to myself and sharing online and everything, of course. But the work is I'm doing for myself. And even in this class, right? Like I'm trying to teach you guys and everything, but this work I'm doing for myself because I want to learn with the process too. So you learn a lot when you're teaching too. That's a fact. And in making mistakes too, you know. That's the tricky part about teaching those classes live, is that the mistake's going to happen, obviously, and you just have to go on with them, you know, and find solutions for something that's not quite working. For example, for the hair, right? Like I'm not since I'm trying to avoid XGen's like the density brush, like the plague, right? So I'm gonna find like some workaround for it, and it might not look pretty, but it's gonna work for me. For example, like for the top of the head, now I'm gonna have to shape some of that hair that's in there. I'm probably gonna do what I was telling you guys since the beginning, and I was like gonna be reducing them to very, very short hair and then making super thin until they basically disappear. And that's basically gonna be my solution, you know. But it's not, like I said, it's not pretty, but it's effective. And since this is not a model for production that we're gonna be animating, right? I can get away with that. I can just make it look nice in the still. And that's all that matters to me. I'm gonna sculpt some of those wrinkles. So it has just a few in here. Trying to make it natural. So I'm gonna cut one in there like that, and then bring some from the top. So this, add some more. This is gonna be basically like hidden by the hair, right? But just add some of them. Actually helps. And then from here, he has some interesting ones that go and echo those. It's such a fine balance, right? Like when you're sculpting something to make it look naturalistic, because it has patterns, it has echoes, like I mentioned before. So some certain forms repeat themselves, but it's just a matter of like being smart on where to put those echoes, you know, because they all add to the rhythm of the form, but they are just, you know, it's like if you repeat them too much, then you break the illusion that things are natural, right? Like it becomes more like a machine made kind of thing. Just define those wrinkles, the directions here, and then from here as well. So when I feel that I'm actually, you know, it's like making things too parallel, I normally break up with a slightly different angle. For example, from here, I'm gonna go more towards here and then break up towards there again, and then the other direction, just to break things up a little bit, you know. And then now that I have those little wrinkles, I'm just gonna be, yeah, and by the way, you guys are, you know, you can ask me questions if you want. Feel free to it. I appreciate it. So I'm gonna just using the clay build up to build some of those. At the end of the day, I like is, you know, it's like talking about the theories, everything behind what I'm doing and everything. But I know that people get more of a kick if I'm doing the work, so you can actually see how I approach those areas. So that's why today I decided, like, you know, I'm talking a little bit too much, and maybe I should do more demos. So that's why, you know, it's like since I'm kind of like at the last leg of this this model, you know, it's like trying to get it done. Why not address some of those problematic areas right now, right? I can show you guys exactly how I do it. It's going to be a little bit stronger here.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Hey Chris, I choose the Rembrandt to make the likeness, and you told me that I will have a lot of freedom to invent.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Different kind of information, and the likeness that the pictures that I got.
Mm-hmm.
The most part of the time he used the cloth that cover his neck.
Yes.
And I started to use that website that you shared with us, the how the name is, Daniel Bosch.
Yeah.
To see the references over there and address for my model. This is the correctly approach.
Mm-hmm. I think so, man. Because like I mean, like if you want to go like very precise with it, which is impossible because a guy that's long gone, right? I would look for people like from the same, you know, like same race and nationality and things like that, and just like more like current times. But I would say, you know, it's like if it's someone who looks slightly like the guy, you know, it's like a similar age and everything, anything it's something worth playing, you know. I mean, like if I cannot find some reference for certain things, I'm you know, it's like modeling for this guy, and if I cannot rely on my memory for it, I'm probably gonna look for some reference of like a similar person, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, totally freedom, man. Like I mean, like Rembrandt it's gonna be cool, you know. It's like to just create something that looks realistic, but without actually copying a person. That's super cool, you know. I think you're gonna have a ton of fun. How is it going, by the way, with the model?
I had problems with my notebook. It started to freeze in the HD mode, and the ZBrush left without say goodbye so many times.
Man. Jesus.
But yeah, and I ordered another computer, and I'm waiting the computer. But I just start to get the old versions to sculpt on it.
Yeah.
Last night I didn't sleep very well, and today on the work I almost fall asleep on the desk. But
zombie.
yeah, my boss asked me, "It's okay?" I say, "No, yeah." And I drink 2 liters of coffee.
Oh,
and yeah. But
yeah,
now I finished to be honest, I finished the porous yesterday, man.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, man, this was so hard because I did 3 times and I don't like the first and the second one because it's too tiny, too big. After that it was too tiny.
Yeah.
And now I did something. I did all the porous, and I break up with some XYZ on the top of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just to have the that kind of stretch wrinkles and stretch porous.
Yep.
And I got the XYZ from the female with 60 years old. I have a very good chicks that I use on the mixing with the porous. I will send you later all the improvements, but I'm so curious to see how it works with the shader.
Yeah, exactly. You can only tell when you plug everything together, right? And
Yeah.
just so you can actually see what's going on in there.
And
But
I didn't paint the maps yet, just the color, but wrong one I need to make again. And I need to paint the spec, because without the spec, we don't have the breakup for the spec, and the shader never looks pretty good. But
yeah.
I'm going slowly, but I'm still very excited with the whole process.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, man. Yeah, like I said before, I mean, you guys feel free to use anything like XYZ. It's just like it's a humbling experience to do the pores by hand. Just because like with a little suffering there, you kind of like
Man, exactly, man. I
yeah.
discovered a lot of songs that make me feel like in trance.
Yeah. Yeah.
About doing because when the computers go back to start to work,
Mhm.
I feel so glad that I didn't stop. And
That's awesome.
but
So
yeah, I really appreciate the things that you share with us.
yeah, man, my pleasure. I really hope you guys like it's like you push even further. The stuff I'm showing. Like I said, everything has room for improvement. But I mean, like I've seen like from Anton from I think he was Anton posted something about the XYZ as well. I'm sitting on top of the building. And then he's mixing actually my technique with the pores, like the manual pores with the XYZ, very successfully. So it's pretty cool. I mean, like I'm all for it. I'm just gonna save this one. I'm gonna show you what I have in Maya, so we can see like the teeth and all that stuff. And then if you have time, come back here to some more sculpting. But let's just see what I got today. Let's just freeze here. Go Maya. Go Maya. Go ZBrush. So those sessions are interesting, right? Like when you do some sculpting and you're just like, it's much slower, obviously, for me to do the sculpting as I talk and I explain the process and I go slowly just to show it. But if I have my music on, it's like things go much faster, obviously. But, just this little session here, let's see what I did. So for example, between this one, let's just bake it in there. That's the way it looks now. And then let's go back here a few steps and see what I added to the model. So between this and go back here. Why is it so slow? It wasn't supposed to be slow. I'm not in HD yet. All the year stuff, right? Yeah, I think like starting here, you can actually see it better. Let's see. Oh, I hope it didn't go to HD. No. So all this stuff that was done now, right? So all the nasolabial, a little bit of the forehead, cheeks, neck, ear. A lot of work in the ear in there.
Chris,
Yes.
you changed the neck a lot.
Uh-huh.
Have to redo the parts in there, or you change just enough so that you don't have to redo all the work you did?
Yeah, I mean, like this is all based like at the kind of like a low resolution, right? Like not low resolution, but it's still like before HD. So and the neck, I don't have a ton of detail just yet. So, but I think it's gonna hold up. Let's just do a test here. For example, if I go from this angle here, let's see, because you're gonna see like my pores are pretty wacky in there. They look weird, but let's see from this angle here, they can have all those wrinkles. And let's do a preview. So there's some areas missing detail altogether. So once I'm in HD, then I'm gonna go again over those big lines here, and I'm really gonna break them up and add like finer detail and stuff. But as you can see, I mean, like the pores are all in place, It's if I was sculpting at the highest resolution there, I would probably be using elastic brush instead of like using this one. But because it was like a lower resolution, I can just sculpt straight away, I can, yeah, I really don't lose a lot of detail by doing this way. This is saved. Let's do a.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, guys, you can always go back. You know, I would say like if you're sculpting like the lowest resolution here, be careful, of course, like don't move stuff like too sideways. For example, like don't slide things too much like that, right? Otherwise, it's gonna screw up everything. But if you do like with a big brush like that, like very flexible like this, you should be completely fine, you know. And then if you're sculpting a resolution like this, and same thing, you know, try to sculpt like either if you're moving stuff side to side, do it with a big brush like that, or if you like changing forms, sculpting the direction of the normals, and then everything should be preserved, you know. I would try not to sculpt too much at the highest subdivision levels, like this one, for example, but because I knew that the neck and this area here don't have a lot of detail yet, I can actually do this and then go back and just refine those forms at the highest levels. So let's go to Maya here. So I finished that render. Let's just save it so I can actually compare. So look at the difference between this guy here with this crazy hair that I still have to work on, and this guy here, right? Same model, you know, just different lighting. You know, the base, like the irises look bigger in here, right? The teeth looks wider in here. The chin looks much narrower here than this one. It's like the lighting changes completely, you know, it's like the shape sometimes. So that's why it's good to actually go back and forth. And if you can make sure that the model looks like the person under different lighting, like extremely different lighting, then you're normally like in a good course, you know. So this should work. But I still have to do much more work in the likeness. So I'm gonna just save this one. And let's take a look at the teeth. And talk a little bit of the lighting I have here too. Again, I'm gonna be sharing this, right? Like the lighting setup. So you guys can have the same one and test, but feel free to experiment with it. Just gonna save this first. And it's getting a little hot in here. Let me just turn on my fan on the back, just a second. Oh, that feels good. All right. It's gonna be a little noisy too. Not too bad. Okay, so let's take a look at the, is my voice okay for you guys, or the fan is too loud?
No, we don't hear the fan.
Oh, sweet. Thank you, guys.
That's fine.
That's good. So let's take a look at the teeth. Although I'm not going to be teaching the teeth, right? Because, you know, it's just like normally our models in those classes, they have like closed mouth. My models up to recently, they all had closed mouth. But now that I built this teeth, I want to model every single one of them smiling, right? That's why, just to show off the teeth. So let me just show you what I have in terms of the topology. Right now it's a little bit messed up in here, right? Because I'm changing his teeth constantly. But topology-wise, it looks like this. So everything is in a single mesh, right? This is all poly groups. And everything is sculpted with a single mesh. So yeah, you see like this lines here, ideally they would have to be a little bit higher so I can have just the teeth, just like this one here. So I'm probably gonna have to slide them just to make it perfect. It's actually easier if you're painting stuff, right? For example, like you can just like select those guys. Just switch here. Select those guys. And then, you know, have just like stuff like that so you can actually paint just the teeth itself. But in this case here, I have to actually move those little lines higher a little bit more. Just like tuck in, just like this one. So it actually works better. It's a little hacked in there, right? And I think to compensate, I actually painted with, I added some color on top of it. So you see like the color goes beyond that just to compensate for it. But you know, if I put it correctly in there, I think it's gonna look better. So topology wise, like I said, is all the same, right? But the teeth is all pretty messed up right now because I'm in the process of moving stuff around. And later I'm probably gonna have to, you know, it's like get here and move things to actually look more correct. You know, it's like those are too flat in there, build some more form. But at this point, I'm just like messing around with the teeth, so not too much to to see there other than the topology, of course. So let's take a look at the shader. For the shader, I think the trick is in the shader here. If you look at the renders, not this guy here, but if you look at something like this, right? It's actually working nicely. Just could have some more detail, you know, it's like in more breakups to look more natural. It looks a little too rounded still. But in terms of the shader itself, it looks okay. His teeth, if I get you a picture here, it was quite messed up. So this one is even yellower than the one I have, but obviously there is a yellow light happening here too, so it's exaggerating some more, right? But you see like how sharp those lines are? So I'm gonna have to make them sharper as well. And then add some of that gunk and that stuff in the texture and probably like some displacement in there, right? So that can really break up things. So it's still a long way to go with the teeth, but the teeth is pretty messed up. So it might get a little bit darker, probably not. I think that picture is a little bit too dark. So let's see the shader here. So gray skin, that's not what we want. We want the teeth. So let's get this one. So teeth upper, which is basically the same topology I'm using for the bottom teeth as well to save me time. If I later need to do a different texture, I can just basically like shift the UDIM to the next one. So I have like two different UDIMs so they don't overlap, right? But for now, just like for my concept stuff, I have the same shader applied to both of them. Although this one is called teeth upper, it's for both. So let's see the settings I have. So for the base, I don't think I'm using it. So let's see, subsurface. Yeah. So before I had a little bit of a mix between the base, which was the diffuse, right? And then mixed with subsurface. But then after I cranked all the way to 1 here, so basically the base can be ignored. So that one doesn't work for anything. Then the specular, I'm using like a very, very sharp spec, which is like mirror-like spec, right? Like super thin, super tiny spec, which is 0.005. So it's very, very sharp. And then the index of refraction, I'm using 1.5. And the weight is at 0.15. So it's not much. But I'm using like a double spec. I'm using the coat as a secondary spec. So for the transmission, that's a little tricky here. So the transmission, I'm using some scatter. So I have some depth in there, some scatter, and the extra roughness. So basically what those parameters do, combined, they actually diffuse the transparency, right? So it creates kind of like a milky transparency when you use them combined like that. And then you have, when you go to the weight itself here, then I have plugged the map, which is basically a transparency map. I don't think I have in my ZBrush in here. I was supposed to. I think I have in another model that I can actually open later. But I can show you the way it looks like. Let's see if he opens up here. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to see, but you see like this arc areas in here. So basically like in ZBrush, I painted the tips of the teeth, like the bottom area of the teeth with black. So I can actually use that as a transparency, right? So everything you see in black in here, right in the middle of the teeth, that's transparency that I painted. So there's some kind of like a gradient as well. So it goes like from completely transparent at the tips, and then it starts getting a little bit less and less transparent, all the way to get solid, right? So basically that's what I'm doing to create that effect of, you know, it starts transparent in here and then gets more and more solid. So that's basically the fading happening there. So that's the map I'm using there. And then let's see the settings. I'm using alpha as luminous because it's a black and white map. And then the alpha gain, instead of like all the way to 1, is just as much transparency you want to get, right? So let's do a little test here since we are here. Let's switch my lighting again. So I have my lights. So I'm just going to hide all of them. Come on. Is it choking on me? Oh, sometimes it does this crazy thing that has like 2 different outliners and one works and the other one doesn't. It's very funny. Maya and its things.
Sorry, Chris.
Yes.
I have a question. You probably you have probably answered this, but I wanted to know why do you make teeth with the gum combined in the mesh? I mean, you have a single base mesh, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the teeth are not separated from the gum.
No.
And is it? Yeah, they are combined. Yeah, and I wanted to know, does it make the shader look better, or is it any specific reason, or you prefer it like this?
I think the reason it started at work actually, because we use RenderMan at work, and then there's a lot of problems that come with like multiple objects intersecting and with the subsurface scattering. Sometimes you get like some very dark lines in between the, you know, it's like when you get like the connection between the two parts. Arnold deals with that much better because you have the, you know, it's like you put everything inside of the same group, right? The shared SSS. So I can have like the eyes and the skin in the same group, and then it kind of like, it makes a nice and soft transition. So maybe I would not have the problem here, but I think I started more like as an experimentation, and I like the effect, you know. The fact that I can have, for example, like a single object in there, and then in ZBrush, I can actually go with the Z sketch and then draw tiny little lines and create the micro bubbles right in the connections, you know. And also, if I need to differentiate like between the type of scattering between the two parts, I can actually mask stuff, you know, so I can paint a little map to do that. But the thing is, like, the connections are always perfect. It's like, it's pretty tight. Obviously, if I look at this ones here, like I said, it would be nicer if I actually tuck this one in a little bit more, so it actually looks like it's part of as a separate object, right? But topology-wise, I think like it works very nicely, you know. And also for the shader, I mean, like you have no way to have any problem with the subsurface scattering, you know. I think it's kind of like started with a legacy kind of thing from work, but I like the effect, so.
Because it's a little hard to change the teeth, at least when you want to make a proper and a good one. And if you don't have any so far, to change the position of the teeth, it's a bit hard, but if it works better, so
yeah,
go
yeah. I mean, like anything that works for you guys. For example, like in my case here, if I need to change stuff, right? So for example, like I'm gonna have my little selection in there, so I can actually just like, you know, spin things around and rotate like in the visual one is like that. But in obviously, like if I'm gonna do something that's completely crazy, I'm gonna have to actually, you know, it's like I can move them around and then I can have to tweak stuff, right? Like that. But then if I'm gonna do something crazy, like really like removing it too, so probably gonna have to do something like, you know, it's like really bringing everything in or something like that, and then re-sculpting it, or just completely smoothing it out and then removing it. But it's all doable, you know. It's like, it's just a matter of like how you're gonna sculpt it. But yeah, I mean, like it works fine for me.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. So back here to the shader. So I already did hide everything, and I brought that kind of like the studio lighting again, and I'm gonna bring to this one here, this angle. Which one? This one. So actually do some renders in here. So let's see if we can get the renders not to look too slow. So let's go back here. Let's just select this little area and let's play with the parameters of the teeth. Actually, better than that, let's hide everything but teeth, so we can actually see what's going on with it. So let's keep the studio lighting and then the teeth. Let's do this guy here, just the top one, and then the studio lighting, and then Alt H, so it hides everything but that. And let's see right here. Let's try that. As I want to show you guys in real time what the transparency is doing, because that's I think the whole trick in there is coming from the transparency. So okay, so that's there. And then now I have a very strong backlight. That might be a little bit tricky to see what's going on. It might be a little bit Yeah, that's not the angle I want either. Is it? Yeah, I think that is. Okay, let's just isolate this and just get this part here. But the transparency is going to be too strong because I have a very, very strong backlight there. And I don't know if that's the ideal to test this. Maybe going to just reduce the intensity a little bit for this guy. So I have, let's see, 3.5. Let's do like 1. Yeah, so it looks a little bit more natural, even like 0.5 maybe. Something like that. So what we're gonna do is let's just isolate, like to go faster, a little tooth like that. And also let's tweak our shade, our parameters for the render. Let's do like 6 in here, a little bit faster. And let's put this one aside. Oops, here goes the second outliner that I don't understand why is it there. So transmission, let's go back here and see what this thing is doing. So we are talking about the transmission, right? So we got like the transmission here, wait. So let's go to this one, and that's the alpha gain that I'm controlling, right? So you look at this area here, let me just save this, store the snapshot, and let's play with this. So the alpha gain at the default 1 here, for example, that's what it looks like. So you see it's completely eating it up, and it's going completely transparent in there. Let's wait a second. Actually, it's slower to do that way. So that's basically how it compares, right? It's how much you're gonna eat it up with the transparency. So that's how it compares, right? And then the other one I had was like 0.3 something, right? That's around there. Then if you go all the way back here to 0, then you get it solid. So that when you see them solid like this, the only thing you're seeing, it goes much faster to render as well. It's basically the color variation. So I painted yellower at the top and then whitish at the tips, right? Then combined with that, like almost like matching that, I'm actually painting the transparency, which is just a black and white map. So we're just gonna paint black, very black around like the edge right here, and then it goes it's slowly up to here. You know, it's like goes a little bit grayish until it gets to white completely. But yeah, so that's basically what's doing the trick. Like at around like 300 something, that's when I actually found like, okay, that transparency is looking, it's working okay for me. So that's what you're seeing there, right? And then let's see the rest of the maps in here. Oh, actually, let me just keep this one up so we can actually look at what we are doing. It's rendering there. And if we change anything, I want to make sure that you guys are seeing what's changing. So transmission, Specular already spoke about, and then the subsurface scattering. So for the subsurface scattering, I'm using the scale here. I'm actually modulating the scale. Instead of like having like all the way through the same scale, I'm using a mapping here. So the map is again the transparency map. So it's the black and white map. And I'm using the same map to actually a copy of it to actually modulate that. So I'm basically like underexposing it. So -1. And all those values I'm giving you here, it's just like a ballpark, obviously, because it all is going to depend of how your maps are painted, how intense the grays are painted and everything. And the only way to see it is when you render your stuff. And then when you render, you're going to actually be able to judge if it's missing more subsurface gathering or not, right? In my case here, for those maps, I had to underexpose it. And then the alpha gain, I kept at 0.323. And let's see if I have any, yeah, and I'm using invert because by default, it's going to be the opposite, right? Like everything, if I don't have invert, everything is going to be the opposite. So the transparency is going to be around here, and then that's not going to be transparent. And in this case here, it's just controlling the intensity of the subsurface scattering, right? Like how deep it goes. So that's the scale. So let's look at the, I have a little bit more of like front scatter than back scatter here. So like a little bit 0.1. And then for the color, I'm using the color that comes from ZBrush, which is this one here. Right, very simple map. A little bit more yellow here, and gets a little bit like more desaturated kind of ochre, and then whitish at the tips. And then if I go down here, I'm using a couple of offsets. So basically like the color gain, I'm actually shifting a little bit towards yellow. So those are the values I have in there. So basically like everything is shifting towards yellow, including the gums, which is not ideal. But if I did a better job with the paint, I would not have to do that. Or I can just mask it and then control separately. So, and then I have a color offset in here as well, which is shifting a little bit towards blue, surprisingly. Because for some reason I thought like, okay, there's a little bit of a kind of like a grayish blue underneath the yellow. So I kind of like decided to add a little bit of that. And yeah, it's just like, to me, it's always like the visual reference, you know, it's like if the render is looking, if I have a lighting setup that's very neutral, for example, right? You assemble like a lighting setup that's like a studio lighting with a color calibrated to daylight, let's say like 7,000 to 7,500 Kelvin, right? So it's pretty much like a white daylight. If I have that and I'm seeing my colors are not looking correct, so that's why I play with all those slides, you know, and try to get the result that I want. And sometimes, I mean, like I go back to ZBrush and repaint the maps, but sometimes I just like, okay, I know what needs to be compensated. I kind of keep track on that. And then I just paint enough in ZBrush and then bring back in the color corrections already added. So subsurface color is that. And then the radius, I'm using the same map for the radius, right? This one. Just with the exposure a little bit cranked. And I'm actually shifting the color again towards blue. Here, and then the color offset. Actually, I have a lot of offset towards blue as well. Not by much, but I mean, slightly. And so that's basically like my subsurface color. No, actually, this is the radius, right? Yeah, this is the radius. I already spoke about subsurface color. And then for the coat, the last one, I have another 0.15. That's basically the same as the specular, right? So 0.15. So both combined give me like a 0.3, which is like 1/3 of full-on reflection. So it's not like fully reflexive, but it's pretty good at like 30% of it combined. And then the roughness, instead of like 0.005, it's 0.05. So it's like 10 times more. So that means like you're gonna have a sharp speck coming from the specular itself, and then a broad reflection from the coat. And the coat is also, the roughness a little, yeah, the roughness is actually, it's spreading the specular a little bit more. And the index of refraction is the same as well, 1.5. And no sheen, because we're not dealing with velvet. And the transparency of the object is off, because I want actually just the transmission to happen, but not go full on transparent with the object and specular and everything. So that's basically what I have for the teeth. And let's see, let's talk about the lighting here. So the lighting, what I have, this is the one I'm gonna be giving away, but that's basically, I think I spoke about it yesterday. That's all it is. It's just like a big soft box in the back, calibrated for 7,500, right? And then this guy here actually has the umbrella. Oops. Actually, oh yeah, because this one has plugged with it's plugged with how you call it, the object light, right? So I have like the lights and I have a mesh light. So to find out what it is, basically like if you click the top node, you're gonna be selecting almost like the pseudo object. It's not the object anymore, right? It became a light. So the light should be inside of it. So if you click the light, then you can have access to all the parameters. Let's go back in here. And then, so basically like my lighting, it's coming from this file called umbrella.hdr. So let's see if we can find it here. Let's see, HDR SIDL, I believe. I think that's the website has it. So SIDL, HDR Labs. And then if it's not the same, at least like the one they have in here is very similar. But if you keep scrolling, so you have this one's here. So you have the umbrella, and this is the EXR version. So that's not the one I'm using. Probably got from some other place. But those ones should work fine. What I'm gonna say is that the umbrella here, the flashlight's a little bit towards yellow. So maybe like the color calibration would be more like maybe like 5,500 Kelvin instead of like something that's more like 7,000, like something like this. So, but those are cool, you know, it's like you can actually plug those ones into a plane, just a regular object plane, and then transform that object into a light, right? And then you're gonna have that. So yeah, that's all it is. And then, but you know what? I'm gonna have to track down where I found that other one, because if I'm gonna give away the scene, I want you guys to have the exact same result. So let's see if they have at HDR. Let's see, HDRI Haven.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I guess that the umbrella HDR, it's oliverwolfson.com.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I use the same one here.
Oh, cool. So what's the name again? Oliver?
Oliver Wolfson.
How you spell it?
WOLFSON.
Okay.
.com.
Okay. Let's try that. Oh, Wolfson. Oh, Wolfson. Is that?
Yeah, I just look for. I'm gonna put the link in the chat.
Let's do this. It's okay. You said .com, right?
Yeah. At least I think that is the same.
Yeah, it might be the same. So he has like it's been such a. I mean, like I collected so much stuff for so long.
Yeah, I sent the link.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay, let's take a peek here. Yeah, probably this one. Yeah. Yeah. This is more daylight. Yeah, totally. So yeah, you guys can grab from here, and I just don't want to pack with my files because it's his own stuff, you know. So I just can just like point to this one, and then you guys can download it. Awesome, thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm glad you tracked it. I just download stuff, you know. It's like it's cool too, you know. It's like to give a shout to the guy, you know, because I mean, like we're using those stuff like downloaded, but you know, that's cool. That Oliver Wolfson, right? Cool, awesome. So those are basically like the ones I have plugged in here, and then in terms of intensity, what I have is like a 35 for this side. Oh, let's open this one. So 35 for this side here for intensity, and then the other side is, it was also 35, so I actually kept the same, which is interesting. I thought I had a different intensity. So yeah, it's kind of surprising. Let's do this. Let's hide the guy. Just gonna do a little test here. Well, I hope I'm not rendering the background. It's taking forever to load. Let's see if I'm rendering the background. No, it's actually, it was rendering the background. That's why it took a little forever in there. So let's just try to render again. This guy here, that goes a little bit faster. That one. And let's just play with this intensity, because remember like when I was comparing this guy to this guy here? I mean, the lighting is so different, right? Yeah, it is. Seems like the same intensity. Maybe I have it slightly offset. That's why it's getting a bit more shade in here. Maybe that's what it is. But if I start playing with the intensity of one of them, then you're gonna get a little bit richer, you know, shadows. It might be more interesting. It's kind of like it looks like a window kind of light. So let's get one of them. The one on the. It'd be nice if I actually name things correctly. It would be helpful. So let's see this one there. So that's the one I have here. So let's make the other one a little bit darker. So the one on the right is going to be darker. So we're going to go from that to half of it. So 18, something like that. Oh, I know what's going on. I bet it was actually, I think they are linked. So basically, like probably a duplicated, like with the duplicates special, and then actually it copied all the connections, including the intensity. So basically, like they are linked. So if I change one, it's going to change both. Huh. Interesting. So let's try this. Let's try this one here. And I'm going to just do like a edit, duplicate special again, and world. It's interesting because it wasn't supposed to copy, like it was supposed to have its own connections. But yeah, apparently they got linked somehow. So let's see if this one works differently. So this is on the right, on the left right now. Let's try this one, this one. Let's hide that one. Let's see. Or we're gonna have to reload my scene, which is unfortunate. Takes a little bit.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I'm wondering, is there any chance you could show us your cloth shadings for your Stan Winston and Dick Smith?
Oh, sure, yeah. Like it's quite simple actually. The Stan Winston has a little bit of sheen to it, but it's there's nothing too fancy. I can open to show you. Let me just get this stuff. Yeah, I think the scene here, I messed around with it a lot, but I don't need to save it. Let's just open the Stan Winston. Let's go back here. I have, I think it's like a little pattern that's like a Maya procedural. That's just like adding the little cloth texture. But it's very even, you know. It's like it would be nice if I had more breakup to it. But let's see, Stan Winston. And what I have a little bit of a fur in there too. Let's see. Scenes. Clean scene. Let's see. Let's do that. Let's see. This one is saved already, so I don't need to worry about it. This like it looks like this, you know. It's like it's not even complete. It's just partially like that. Everything. My life is a lie, man. Look at that. And then I think I added like I think I went HD with it because it would be faster to export the displacements, but it's not like super fancy. Oh, actually, this one I don't have any. So yeah, I went all the way to 12 million polygons. So I don't have this like HD in this one. But the thing that I did, I actually made sure that everything was unwrapped correctly. And so I can actually look at this guy. This is the problem with with XGen, that sometimes you save your scene, and this comes from the brush that I hate the most. That's the density brush. It looks correct in the scene, but then you save it. When you reopen your file, it looks like this. So normally to solve the problem, what I do, I just go, for example, like to eyebrows, right? So go to eyebrows here, and you can go to your base, and then you can just rebuild.
Yeah, he looks sexy.
So you just press rebuild, and then all of a sudden it fixes it, you know? So for example, like the peach fuzz, right? And I click rebuild here. So you remove that one, and then the goatee rebuild. So now it looks normal. But then as soon as I save this file and I reopen it, it's all messed up again. It's like there's this corruption that happens with XGen. It's a nightmare. But it's like this is the model with the peach fuzz and everything. The eyelashes look a little bit nicer than what I have right now. Since they share the same UVs, I might even steal some of that, but probably not. I think I'm gonna go with the ones I have. And but for the cloth, basically, like you see, like I have a little peach fuzz in it. You can see from this angle, like all the fuzz going on. So that helps with you know, breaking things up. But in terms of shader itself, I think this one is a little bit too shiny. So let's see. Let's open one here. Yeah, it's like from this. angle here, it kind of like looks okay, but then from the wide angle, it looks a little bit too shiny in the edges because of the shim that I'm using. So let's see how it's plugged. Everything's plugged in there. So let's see. Let's get to the hypershape. Then graph materials, and then that's the suit. So like very little nodes plugged in here. So I have the base, I have some color in there. I don't think I have any subsurface, right? It's just, yeah, no subsurface. So just the base here with a little bluish color. And specular, I have like a very broad spec. So basically like 0.7. So it's like super rough spec. And then very low intensity as well. So like 0.166. But then I have some, so no transmission because not transparent, no subsurface, no coat. And then the sheen, I have this at 0.267, which is a little bit strong, you know? So it depends if like you're gonna go like more towards like a satin, for example. You're gonna go lower with the roughness, right? You're gonna go something more that looks like velvet, then you're gonna go a little bit higher. And in terms of the color, I actually use a similar color, so it's like bluish, but it's just like a lighter color blue like that. And then let's see, for example, those parameters. Since we are here, let's just keep the lighting on top, in place. So that's the flashlight that I have here. So you see the camera in there. I actually have this one linked to the camera. So it's actually constrained to the camera. So it doesn't matter for what angle I render stuff, the camera always follows it. So if I go, for example, here you see like the camera, the little camera basically like with the lighting following it. So that's basically the flashlight. So it doesn't matter what angle I go, you know, it's like you always have the flashlight effect to look like. And another thing that I'm doing actually is that you can actually trick the Maya to actually read the distance between, like in Z, for example, in Z axis, to get more intense as it gets like closer to the subject, because some of those shots are closer to the subject, right? Sometimes the camera gets a little closer like that or further. So what I'm doing to correct that, to correct the intensity of the light, is using a set-driven key. That's a very cool, powerful little tool in Maya that works like this. So for example, you see the intensity here. So if I click, for example, like the intensity, if you click right-click, you can say set-driven key, right? And then basically this is the way you control that. So for example, I have plugged in the translate Z. It's like it's basically like my measure of the distance between. It's not a precise measure because if I go sideways, obviously it's not going to do the same effect. But basically, like it's just using the Z axis and then plug in the intensity. So basically, like you can just say key. So if I want to create another key, for example, for the axis in translation X, for example, just press key here. So and then I can just before I do that, I just put a new value here. For example, if I do like 200 right here. And I can just say key. So every time now that the camera is at this position in relation to the Z axis, so if it's around here, it's going to switch to intensity 200, right? But then if I go towards this, it's 150 now. And then here, minus 50, 120, 800. So it keeps changing, you know? Because if the lighting is a little bit further from the subject, obviously you're going to have to crank the intensity of the lighting, right? It's the same as in real life. You're going to have to put more intensity so you can reach that subject. But another thing you can do here is to use like a little trick. I was trying to keep like more correct according to the, you know, like to real life. But you can use this normalize here perfectly as well. In this case here, if you click normalize, then the intensity of the lighting is always the same. No matter how big the lighting gets, right? Like the source gets. You're always going to have the same intensity, so you can play with that as well. In this case, you don't need to use any set-driven key, and I was like, just click normalize, and normalize is more used like for creative lighting. So instead of like if you have a giant softbox and you put the intensity of it at 1, for example, if you have normalize, you can reduce the softbox to a tiny little spot, and the amount of light is still going to be the same coming from that. It's just going to have like sharper shadows. So it's more like for creative lighting, you know, instead of like something more physically accurate. And I was trying to keep a little bit more physically accurate. But yeah, in terms of the geometry, so the shader itself is very simple, right? It's not a lot going on. But I was about to do something. Let's do this, and then select this guy, and just let's render something just with those elements in place, so we can see what changes. So let's do render, low intensity, low resolution, like 6, something like that. And for the, oh, what's the size of my renders? It's 1,000, so I didn't need 1,000. Let's 800 should do it. And let's do a little render here. So Arnold.
Do you have any map controlling the pitch fuzz?
Oh, no, it's all even. It goes all the way across. Oh, I have to talk about the bump map as well.
Thanks,
but it's completely even. Oh, and I have something going on here, which is the my depth of field, which I have to turn off. Oh, actually, I don't have depth of field. So what's this coming from? It's probably from another camera. So let's see. This one's perspective 1. Let's switch this one to the same camera. So this one doesn't have a. Yeah, so that's better. So you see, like I have this little halo going on around it. And so basically, like if let's isolate this area here. We have this little halo in there that's caused by the shin. So let's do click on it, and let's play with it. So I think I went a little bit overboard with that. I think it could be a little bit more subtle, but I'm gonna go even more overboard just to exaggerate the effect here. Let's save, store the snapshot, and then let's just crank the weight in here. You see, you're gonna get a lot of, you know, this kind of like a glancing angle kind of halo thing, right? So this is very cool if you're trying to represent something like a, you know, it's like satin or you know, velvet. If I go lower with this, it's gonna be shinier. So you can get a little bit more like a nylon kind of surface, right? Very shiny like that. So satin would be probably, you know, it's like lower like that, because it's kind of like a micro little fuzz that has, right? And then if I go higher here, it gets more and more diffuse. So that's basically what I use for it. And like I said before, I would just like probably like for the next renders, if I do, I'm gonna just like bring it down a little bit and keep a little bit more on the shiny side of things. And probably the weight here, I'm gonna keep a little bit on the dark side, like maybe, I don't know, like 200, something like that. But let's talk about the bump. So the bump is very simple as well. So if I go down here to the geometry, so I have cloth in there, which is basically a node from Maya. Right, if you go to the 2D geometry textures here, you have cloth, right? So that's the little node that I plug this bump. And then if I click and expand this one, it's basically like it's just a repetition. It repeats a lot of times actually. So I have those values in here. So, you know, width and for V, U and V. But then let's look at the color balance. If I have anything tweaked here, probably not. No. Effects, inverted, no. Let's take a look at the UV coordinates. Yeah, so I'm repeating that pattern like 1,000 times. I tried to find like the optimal size for the little, you know, cloth, and then I think 1,000 was kind of like what I settled with. So that's 1,000, and then and let's see what else I had something else to say about, oh, the UVs. So let's take a look at UVs. I think the most important thing is to make sure that UVs are very unwrapped, right? Like, because you don't want to have anything stretching. So I unwrapped it pretty good. And yeah, I mean, like, it's not like a straight line, right? Like, I mean, you could, for example, make all those lines pretty straight if you wanted to. I still have some stuff like baked in, like some of the wobble and sculpture in there. So that's why it has that. But I could, you know, it's like optimize this mesh a little bit more. There's a feature here in Maya that you can actually straighten those things a little bit more. But I think ideally, if you're working with cloth, I never used it, but I want to try the Marvelous Designer, just like for the fact that UVs would be probably perfect, right? Like you would have just like the cut for that piece, and then the UVs will be completely perfect. But in this case here, I mean, like as long as you have completely unfolded, it works very nicely, you know. Let's see like a close-up render. If you can do it here, especially in this area. And I have the displacement plugged as well, so let's get, it's a little bit too perfect, you know. Let's get a little closer. See, it's a little bit too perfect. There's a couple of parameters you can change here. For example, you have the wave in here. You can add a little bit of waviness to it. And then you have some randomness as well. So let's do some random here. So you can break up the pattern a little bit more, you know. Kind of like I didn't care too much. But there's this width spread. Yeah, let's see if it's changing anything. Yeah, something like that. It's a very simple pattern, you know. But with the pitch fuzz on top of it, it actually helps to, oh man, why is it doing that? With the pitch fuzz on top of it, it kind of helps to break things up, you know. And then there's the displacement, obviously, that little line in there. So, you know, at the end of the day, when you render from a certain distance, it looks okay, you know. The pattern looks okay. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, tomorrow, guys, is Thursday. Let's talk about the next days. So like tomorrow is Thursday, is our last session, which is sad. It's always sad, you know, it's like the last one because you know, we get used to the class and everything, and then you have to start over with a brand new group of people, you know, and it's just like you have to establish new connections, right? Like a lot of people you don't know personally. Like most people I don't know personally. I have lots of friends on like Facebook and Instagram, but I don't know a lot of people personally, unless I go to events like you know, the summit, ZBrush Summit last year. I met some guys in there, and some of those conferences, probably like in Brazil, I'm gonna go to Unhide conference in September. So if you guys are going, like any Brazilians out there, it would be nice to say hello, you know. But yeah, it's always hard, you know. It's like just like say goodbye. But we still have another session coming up on Saturday, and I posted the links today. I sent you guys an email, and basically like from now, it's like 11:30, close to 11:30 now. So that means like in about 48 hours from now, that's the deadline, right? So it's gonna be like the end of Friday, and tomorrow is still Thursday. So yeah, you have like 48 hours to, you know, upload all your stuff. I don't like having like last minute people dropping stuff off, because like last month what happened is that one of our students, he actually did that, and it was right in the middle of the download. I was downloading all the images already, and they are pretty high, pretty big, you know. It's like I had like some ZBrush models coming up and everything, and Google was actually in the process of compressing everything so I could download, and then he started uploading right in the middle of the process. So I think Google kind of bugged and started like trying to recompress it again or something. And it took like over an hour and a half and didn't work. So I had to cancel the class. And I told them like, let's come back in about an hour, you know. So just to avoid that huge problem that happened, just be conscious about it. You know, it's like, if you can do this in 48 hours from now, that's going to be perfect. So we can have everything handy in the morning. I can just download the files and then we go from there. And, you know, post like anything you need. I mean, like if it's something that you need, like just some comments about the likeness, I can do with paint overs, just like comment on the areas I think have problems, just like we did the last review session. And then if you are not being part of the class, I mean, like if you want to watch the video later, I still can review your stuff. Probably gonna leave your stuff for night. So instead of like reviewing in the morning, I'm gonna review at night. And then you can send me models, you know. It's like send your ZBrush file. Probably not like I would not say like send me the HD geometry stuff, because those files are pretty big. And if you have like 30 people uploading like 1 GB files, that's gonna take a little while for me to download. But you know, it's like I can comment like a comment visually on the pores and things like that. But I'm not gonna be opening a file that's like HD geometry, right? But if you want me to look at, for example, like the primary forms, secondary forms, send me like a ZTL file, for example, or a project that doesn't have HD in it, so it's a little bit smaller. And or else just send me stuff for paint over. You know, I'm gonna love to do that kind of stuff. And then yeah. So, any questions?
Sorry, Chris. What's the topic for tomorrow class?
For tomorrow, it's me yapping about stuff again. And because I mean, like I said, like yesterday, that those last two ones in the last month, the last one was about like clumping things together, right? And doing a lot of the. Actually, I did a whole session of sculpting with the clay brushes, and then clumping everything at the end with some of the filters that I showed you yesterday. But because you guys have access to that class and you can watch that video, so it's not like I'm gonna have to reinvent the wheel and show everything the same again. So I'd rather like do something more productive, like either like do more sculpting, or I can actually open the mic from the get-go, like from the beginning, and you guys ask me anything like that you have like more doubts about it, and we can just go over it, you know. Save tomorrow for something like let's wrap up with you know, it's like anything that you guys still have a problem with or whatever, you know.
Oh, yeah, that would be good, because I have some question about your Hellboy character.
Oh, sure.
The skin shader and the textures.
And yeah.
I wanted to know how you did that, and that would be good to have a time to ask those questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna be happy to, because you're sculpting your model like with a full body model, right? And you're using HD. That's your intention, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I can open the file tomorrow, and then I can go over it. I think I got about maybe like 250 million polygons in that model because it's a full body, and I still have enough stuff for like face detail. So yeah, that's a good idea. We can go over that.
So Chris,
yes.
One question. So the clay brush setup, it's on the last class from May. We can check it on the video. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all there. So we have like it's either like the last one. Yeah, it's the last one. Basically, like let me just take a look here, just to confirm for you. But yeah, it's all there. So you can actually, I go over like each one of the brushes, how I created each one of them. I actually sculpt in a plane, and I show exactly how it looks like. And then let's see. Let's just open this one. I have to show.
Chris.
Yes.
Firstly, thank you for showing us the chief setup of the shaders.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know if the tongue shares the same network.
Oh, the tongue? No, no. It's a different one. It's a different one. I can open it tomorrow as well. You know, it's like go over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. So let's see.
Chris.
Yes.
I just want to know, how do you handle the details for kids of age or 5 or so?
That's a tricky one, right? Because I don't have a lot of kids that I sculpted. I sculpted a baby a long time ago, but the techniques are very different at that point. It's a good one to actually explore nowadays, you know, because like I said before, the skin is so perfect and so smooth that I don't think you're gonna see a ton of pores. You're gonna see the tiny little pores in there, but probably like not as deep as you see in an adult, you know, like more like a kind of like a female and baby, probably like it would be like in this order, right? A baby, the softest, and then a female, and then a male.
Thank you.
Sure. So check this out. So this is the video here. Just gonna show you a couple of highlights in here. So that's the kind of stuff, you know, it's like I'm showing the.
Oh, awesome.
So all the brushes are in there, and I show, and basically like I'm numbering them. So I sculpt each one of them and showing what the settings for each one, and then what it does, and then just numbering them basically.
No, that's awesome.
And then I go through this process of like getting that model that I had, and basically like doing a clay version of it. So basically I sculpt with all those brushes to experiment with them. And I show my setup for the lighting and the curtain in there. And then I do a render with the clay. And then some of the, you know, the post-processing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so take a look at it's all there. And now you guys have access to the entire thing, so.
Yeah, thanks. I downloaded it already. I just didn't have time to watch it.
Oh yeah, no, you're gonna, dude. So far we have probably like both classes combined, probably like 80+ hours.
Bro, I didn't even start my project.
Oh,
I
man.
couldn't. I studied like 1 year for this class.
Man, and I was watching some of the stuff the other day, and I hate my voice, right, and the accent and all this stuff. And I'm gonna have to torture myself rewatching myself because I'm gonna have to edit those videos to chop and make nicer versions of them, so I can actually sell like an offline kind of class. So that's my project is actually for August and September. Actually, just edit everything, remove all those parts of questions and answers, and just keep like clean, and then sell like much cheaper but without any interaction. So that's going to be the intention next after everything is said and done.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But are you going to? Are you going to?
Sorry.
Are you going to open another classes like this one, or just sell what you teach? You teach?
So basically, like I had those 3 classes. The first 3 ones are kind of like an experiment, right, to see if it would work. So far, they worked out fine. But then some people start complaining, oh, I don't have the money to pay for the entire thing, the entire experience. Are you planning to do something that's cheaper? I was like, no, not really. But then over time, I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, what if I chopped off all the questions and answers, which is like this major part of the class, right? I'm kind of like teaching you stuff on demand, right? Like you guys ask me stuff, I just do that. I think it's great. But some people just don't care about that. They just want to do like, for example, watch me doing like mini tutorials and things like that. So instead of like having the entire thing and having like 32 hours plus 4 hours of review, so like 36 hours that you guys get, plus like the other 2 classes, right? So we are getting probably like over 90 something hours, 100 hours you're gonna get probably for the $800. So for them, it's gonna be just like one version of the video. So it's gonna be like an edit of the best parts of those 3 classes. So they don't have access to all those hours. They're gonna have access to about 16 hours, so it's half of it. And then not access to other stuff, it's like I don't think they can download it. I can put a setting in there, just like not to be able to download. And that way I can just like sell, let's say like $300 or $400, So people who had no money to do like the full experience gonna have something, So that's the intention. But starting October and November, I'm gonna teach a full-on class again, It's like with the whole experience, with the feedback and everything. So I'm gonna have like the 2 things so you can reach more people, I guess.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, the last question.
Yeah.
When we are going to have, when we are going to be able to watch the class from July?
July? I think what I can do is like I can, as soon as I start the class, I can just grab the link, because normally like I put each one of those videos inside of a little folder, right? Like they kind of like let's see if I showcase, right? So I have those showcases, and then each one of them is saved inside of them. So as soon as I start the new class on Monday, I can actually open the showcase and grab the link and send it straight away to you guys. So maybe you can follow as I do it, Obviously, you're not going to comment or anything, but at least we can watch from home. And since I'm going to be doing a female, maybe some of those questions about the baby skin and female skin, maybe it's going to be a bit more clear. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm too kind, man.
The one and only Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care, man.
Bye.
Adiós.